Welcome back to the War Room, fight fans from around the world. We are talking Canelo Bivol today, and I'm in the War Room with my boy Eddie Goldman. He's an award-winning sports journalist. We call him the conscious of combat sports. And my sister Melissa Smith, she is an author, and she runs a boxing blog called Girl Boxing Now. Welcome to the show, everybody. We are back in the house. Let's talk about Canelo taking an L from this Russian dude. I wanted him to beat that dude's ass, okay? That's all I know. I wanted him to win. I really did. I didn't think he was going to win because he's moved up to light heavyweight. That's some serious moving up in weight. And he just didn't pull it out. And he even thought he won the fight. So what you guys tell me, Eddie, what was your breakdown on this fight? Make it quick.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with what most people have said. Canelo was very courageous and maybe overconfident in moving up, not just to light heavyweight, but to one of the number one or two light heavyweight in the world. When he fought Kovalev a couple of years ago at light heavyweight, Kovalev was already a faded fighter. Mm-hmm. Bivol is not. Bivol is pretty much in the prime of his career. Yet Bivol used his jab. It wasn't just that he was bigger. Canelo couldn't figure out a way for most of the fight to get inside, to work around that jab, to control the ring, to do everything that you have to do, to land more punches. Bivol threw more, landed more, dominated in just about every aspect of the fight, and really had a brilliant fight plan. And Canelo just wasn't big and strong enough and smart enough to pull it off. So Bivol rightly got the decision, even though in the first few rounds, the judges seemed to be really being, to use a euphemism, overly generous for Canelo. After a couple of those rounds, they realized, hey, you know, the favorite Canelo, the big draw, is not winning. So we better score this one on the up and up, or else there's going to be a real problem here. So that was the basic story of the fight. And will there be a rematch? They both say there'll be a rematch. Who knows?
Do we want to see that rematch? I don't want to see that rematch. Like, I don't think I want to see that rematch.
You have all the boxing politics because Bivol is a WBA champion. This was not that close of a fight. Well, they agreed to an immediate rematch. Canelo has all these belts at super middleweight at 168. As some of the sanctioning bodies are going to say, well, you moved up. We let you move up for this fight. Now you got to come back and fight our mandatory. You know, you're getting to all the boxing politics. Is DAZN going to want to pay for this? I don't know if this fight was even sold out in Las Vegas. It did do well on Twitter in the US. It was trending at #1 for a long period of time. I don't know if many people really want to see that fight again. So it's, you know, boxing politics and business and money. And I don't know that it will be that different, because Bivol is going to come in knowing, you know, I did it before and I'll do it again. And I don't know how much differently Canelo can fight in a rematch.
Right. What do you think about that, Melissa?
Yeah, well, first, you know, Canelo really did look so much stronger, and he looked more shock worn. He was tired in that fight.
Yeah.
He was not on his game. You know,
he was flat-footed most of the time, it looked like.
Yeah, flat-footed. He has just come off this enormous campaign to capture all 4 super middleweight belts, and now, I don't think he had enough time between fights to really absorb his achievement and then go on to the next. And I understand why, you know, he wants to just be like the greatest in all divisions. And he has that in his mindset. But I did not think that he was physically prepared for that fight. He got tired, and then he overworked. His mouth was open. You never see him with his mouth open. He's just trotting around the ring when he fights, right? Mm-hmm. He's fought. It's not like he hasn't fought big guys, but he was never relaxed in that fight. And when you're not relaxed, which is something that Bivol was just just chill the entire fight.
Yep,
And when you're in that mind, and the thing is too, it's not like every one of his punches was a flick. He was just doing touches. He was doing touches. He was doing levels. He was being very smart in his counter punching. I mean, yeah, he got caught sometimes, but he also did not particularly respect Canelo's power.
Right.
And I think after the first few rounds, when he realized that Canelo really couldn't touch him and that he was off his game, he was able to just rough him up in that sense. He used a lot of speed. He also changed not only his levels going up and down, he did touch to the body, but he also changed the speed of his punches. He'd do a jab and then he'd do a bop, bop. So he really threw off Canelo's timing in his defense, because Canelo always has brilliant defense, but he was able to get tagged throughout that entire fight. And as the night wore on, he was expending energy just feeling frustrated and trying to arm punch the guy. And it's like, okay, you're trying to arm punch the guy and you gave him a lot of bruises. But as Ball said, well, he punched my arm, see, and I punched his face. And that's all you needed to know about the fight.
Right.
So would I want to see a Bivol Canelo 2? Not the way Canelo fought this time. Not if he's not 100% committed to what he is doing, to what this campaign is, and to understanding that what brought him success at super middleweight and middleweight does not necessarily bring him success when you're fighting against a natural light heavyweight, or a heavyweight that comes down, or a cruiserweight that comes down. You know, some of them might be a natural cruiserweight. And then you also got Bivol saying, well, hell, I'll fight you at super middleweight. And he could, he'd kill him.
Wow, for real? So, he said he'd come down? You know,
so I thought it was...
take your belts, Canelo.
It really is problematic, and it's something he needs to think about in his heart. I mean, he's got a lot of he was shop worn to me.
Yeah, he looked tired. He looked, to me, it wasn't like, I'm like, when is he gonna let his hands go? That's what I was thinking. Like, why does he keep doing this 1, 2, boom? I didn't understand that.
But he wasn't in a mindset of let me touch the guy. You know, everything was a home run with him. And like, yeah, he had some beautiful little moments where he came in with the uppercut. It was very cute, but he hadn't softened him up.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to the body at all.
Nobody
he barely went to the body.
Nobody
just, you know, he hit the guy's arms. He just kept hitting his arms. He wasn't being smart. He wasn't executing a game plan. So I just thought that he wasn't there mentally. I think maybe he took a look at him and said, oops, I don't know.
I stepped in some doo-doo.
But my feeling was he wasn't 100% prepared for the fight. And that his 1-year campaign going after the undisputed at super middleweight has taken its toll. And he needed rest, and he didn't have the rest. And mentally, he just broke down in the fight.
Yeah, he needs about a 6-month layoff. Like, don't do anything for 6 months, Canelo.
No, he needs to come back, breathe and rethink, and rethink in the gym. You know, when you're preparing for somebody bigger than you and stronger and naturally bigger, you got to think differently. You got to fight like a small guy, and he's not used to fighting like a small guy. He's a bully in the ring.
Like, he should have had Tyson in there coaching him on that head movement coming in.
Head movement. How are you using this? Coming down on his punches, using his legs. I mean, he's got he's got some big bottom down there. So use that, come down, use that power so that you're pivoting and being quick. You know,
I love that by Tyson. I've not seen anybody still to this day do that swipe so quick.
Not quite as quick. Yeah.
Right. I mean, and then come up, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, but it's so when somebody has all that power in their legs and their butt like that, that's brilliant. And again, when you're smaller, you have to learn how to fight small. And I don't think that Canelo really understood.
He didn't do that at all.
how to fight small. He didn't work on that in the gym. He worked on his usual game plan of being aggressive and being and sort of using almost not only his power, but his reputation of power, his reputation of being really smart and being able to figure out a person's weaknesses. But he was fighting someone that was younger, stronger, really in his game and comfortable. And that was the key to me. He was relaxed.
I think they're about the same age.
But I think younger.
He looked younger maybe because he has less wear and tear, because Canelo started fighting as a pro
early.
in Mexico as a teenager.
16. He's been fighting since he was 16. And listen, you know, I mean, Bivol he's got like over 90 amateur fights, but it's different. Fighting in the amateurs and fighting in the pros is just different. It's different. So I think Canelo has a lot of soul searching to do. And if he is going to do this fight, he should wait till the fall to give himself proper rest and really rethink his game plan in terms of trying to campaign in the super heavyweight division.
He's made enough money.
In the junior, like that, in that division, sorry.
I really feel Canelo's really a middleweight who took advantage of winning all these belts at super middleweight. And I think going up to light heavyweight looks like it's at least in this fight slowed him down and is not really his optimal weight on the very top level. A lot of guys that he could beat at light heavyweight or even higher up, but when you're dealing with a top guy like Bivol, I just think it's too much for him. And so he's going to have to decide, does he want to just with ego and pride to try to avenge this loss, or does he just want to move on for a while?
Move on for a while, you know, take care of his mandatories. Do Triple G3, you know.
Who is his mandatory?
I don't know. That hasn't come out yet.
Okay.
But, you know, I'm sure he'll have them. He's got all the belts.
He has one fight left with DAZN. And a lot of people felt he made a mistake in passing up a fight with Jamal Charlo, which would mean he'd have to go back to Showtime, but he could probably make more money on pay-per-view with a Showtime pay-per-view with Charlo, assuming Charlo keeps winning. Then
he doesn't go to jail.
Then, well, yeah, there's all that stuff, but assuming they're able to buy their way or get out of that, whatever, he could probably make more money and have a better chance of beating Charlo, who does not look invincible, also gotten a lot of wear and tear on him, than staying on DAZN, you know, and risking fighting a guy that just completely outboxed and outclassed him.
Right.
So, I mean, there's another thing that we really have to bring up in terms of, do you want to see a fight? I do not want to see any of these Russian professional boxers getting a chance to fight. And if people say, well, yeah, what Russia, the government is doing is horrible, war crimes in Ukraine and crimes against humanity, but what does it have to do with these boxers? Here's a clear example. When Bivol won, and that, of course, was an upset for the bookies anyway, the Russian Boxing Federation put out a statement saying that he was the pride of Russian boxing because he's a Russian. He was born in Kyrgyzstan, one of the former Soviet republics, but he grew up in St. Petersburg, Russia, which was the old stomping grounds of Vladimir Putin. And they put out this statement from Tatiana Kiriyenko from the organization, the secretary of the Russian Boxing Federation, praising him. I'm filled with joy and pride. In other words, whatever he wants to do or say, and he has not come out against the war, Russia's horrible war of aggression, and may be difficult for a Russian citizen to do that because it's illegal. But still, he's given them a propaganda victory by saying, look how great our guy is. Canelo was pound for pound #1, the big favorite, fighting in what is his essentially his unofficial hometown where he fights most of his fights in Vegas. And he wanted this, and a lot of people said there's no way he could win a decision. And even with biased judging, Bivol still won a decision. Look how great of a fighter he is for Russia. And that makes him the pride of Russian boxing. Number two, they announced Bivol is coming from California, where his trainer is. He may live, a lot of Russians live outside of that country because things are so awful and getting worse in that country. So they maintain residences, the people that have the money in the United States, in the UK, a whole bunch of different places, but they're still Russian citizens, which means that money is going back to Russia. And there are sanctions by the US, the UK, the European Union, many other countries, Japan, Canada, against Russia in various ways. And so by supporting him, and I'm sure he got a big payday from this, you're basically economically helping out a cash-strapped Russia, which is just about to default on its debts and all the economic problems that they're having because of the sanctions on the major Russian banks and on their top leaders and their top businesses that's going on. And there should be more sanctions. And the European Union is talking about cutting off the supply of Russian gas and oil, which are big exports for Russia and bring in a lot of revenue. And here you are putting this guy in a major fight, making millions and millions of dollars. Some of that's going to filter back to Russia. And even in boxing, you have four of the major sanctioning bodies, the WBC, the IBF, and the WBO, which of course we criticize all the time for all the nonsense. Even they said, we are not allowing Russians to fight in championship bouts. But Bivol was a WBA title holder, and they said, well, we're going to let them fight anyway because they're going to get their sanctioning fees, their blood money from this. And so for these reasons, for the propaganda reasons, for the economic reasons, for the political reasons, I don't think people should be supporting these things and buying these shows and buying these pay-per-views. DAZN isn't the only one, but I read that, I haven't confirmed this, but DAZN shows their fights worldwide, and I believe they still show this in Russia even today. A lot of streaming services that are international, like Netflix, have closed down their services, at least for the duration of the war in Russia. But DAZN is still going on and doing that. In other words, they're doing absolutely nothing other than pretending during the ring introductions that Bivol is a Californian. You can sing California, Here I Come, because they wouldn't let him bring a Russian flag and play the Russian anthem, even though they played the Mexican anthem for Canelo and had Mexican flags there and all over the place. This is nonsense, and it's similar to what the International Olympic Committee did when in the last Olympics, where they said, well, the athletes from Russia can't say they represent Russia, they represent the Russian Olympic Committee. Like that's the big difference. It was utterly absurd. And this is just as absurd. And of course, boxing is just going for that blood money. They don't care where it comes from. They don't care what effect it has on the world. And this is an utter disgrace. And I blame DAZN, Matchroom Boxing, Canelo and his organization, Blavatnik, the main financer and investor in DAZN, the T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, everywhere else. And this is just it's an absolute disgrace. You just follow what's going on in Ukraine and you read President Zelensky's speech that he gave on May 8th, comparing what's going on now in Ukraine to what the Nazis did during World War II in Ukraine. And already just a couple of months into this war, some of this devastation in Ukraine is even worse than what the Nazis did back in the 1940s when they invaded and for a couple of years occupied Ukraine. And Russia is on this same path, that they're kidnapping Ukrainians taking them to Russia. They're interrogating people. They're torturing people. They're bombing schools, hospitals, people that are escaping. They're bombing those vehicles. It's just utterly relentless, utterly criminal. And so it's a minor inconvenience not to have these Russian boxers fight on some of these championship fights. But professional boxing won't even do that, and it's an absolute stain. And I'd say again, don't support any of these fights where you have these fighters from Russia, because even though they say they're from California and don't let them carry a flag, they're still representing Russia, as we saw in this case with Bivol.
Yeah, many of these Russian fighters come here because I've connected with quite a bit of them, you know, from Wild Card, because there was a whole host of Russian fighters over there. And then some of them moved out. Like I met some that were out in Oxnard. And a lot of these guys come here on student visas and then let their student visas expire so they can and work. They work as boxers, and then they're illegal immigrants. And they don't never go home. So, you know, it's a little system they got out here that's working for them, for sure. The Russian boxing community, I mean.
So it's
the
community is very big here in New York, as you know, but you know, we're all just shaking our heads.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a difference between expats and people that have moved from Russia and people that are Russians that are just coming over here like boxers to train and in the prime of their careers, and then later on are gonna move back. I mean, some other examples have been, if you remember a few years ago, there was the big tall heavyweight Nikolai Valuev, who briefly held the WBA heavyweight title. And he fought over here a few times. I remember talking with the guy. Actually, when I talked with him, Don King tried to portray him as like a big, you know, gorilla giant. He put a picture of him next to, I forget whether it was the Empire State Building or the Sears Tower in Chicago, making him the same height. And Valiev did not like that because he was a thoughtful guy. But he's also now in the Russian Duma and a member of Putin's party, United Russia. And there are many other examples from other sports. In fact, if you remember, Pirog was the one fighter that early in his first fighter to beat Danny Jacobs a number of years ago. Then Pirog got injured and had to stop his boxing career, even though he was undefeated. He's also in the Russian Duma for United Russia. So that they come over here and fight, make some money and go back. This is something that has gone on in normal times, but these are not normal times, because Putin has made very clear he's not just at war with Ukraine. He's looking to attack Poland, the Baltic states, Moldova, anybody that's near him. And he's looking to as he's openly stated, get rid of liberal democracy in the West. Mm-hmm. He openly has stated he's at war with the West. He's at war with democracy and everything that the West, the good things anyway, that the West has stood for. And in fact, in terms of athletes dealing with them, Bivol can come over here and fight in Vegas in front of a big crowd on a DAZN pay-per-view. Look at Brittany Griner, the WNBA star, who went over to Russia to play basketball in the Russian basketball league because they pay much more than the WNBA does in their off season, and they bust her on what even the State Department finally said, really ridiculous charges. Because Brittany Griner is somebody, she's been an Olympian. She was a star in college. She is a star in the WNBA. She's a star internationally. She's used to travel. I think both of you have done traveling. You know, when you travel a lot, you get used to what you can do and what you can't do, what you could put in your bag, what you can't put in your bag. And some of the rules are kind of petty, and, you know, you can't take shampoo, or you got to be careful about prescription medications and things like this. She travels all the time. She's going to put hashish oil in her baggage going from the U.S. to Russia. I mean, come on, who's going to believe all that? And they're still essentially holding her hostage. And she was busted at some point in February, and they didn't even admit that. These are the conditions for athletes trying to compete in Russia, and we're rolling out the red carpet for these kind of athletes here. No, we can't allow that. It may not be completely fair to Bivol and these others, but let him be. He's a brave warrior. Let him come out and denounce the war. Then maybe you'll have an argument that, you know, that he should be able to fight. But a number of people in Russia, prominent people, have denounced the war, and all of a sudden they're getting ill, and, you know, all kinds of nonsense going on in what is essentially becoming more and more of a totalitarian state. So there are bigger issues than Canelo versus Bivol. And I think that takes precedence over just, you know, another big boxing match.
Right. All right. Well, look, folks, that is all we have for you guys today, because Eddie and Melissa are in New York and they're having power outages. And so we want to cut this short before they drop out. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Listen, you guys know where to find us. Look for us on Twitter at Angry Afro Radio. You follow my girl Boxing Now on Twitter, and my boy NHB News, No Holds Barred News on Twitter. And look, we'll see you guys next week, because we've got a couple shows lined up. We need to get some good stuff out to you guys. Thank you. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next week. Peace, love, and push-ups.